this topic here, I want to do less of showing you how to do these particular calculations and skills, and more time sort of discussing it, because a lot of the dot points here are more about sort of awareness rather than doing that skill itself. There is a bit of that as well, but for the most part, a lot of this stuff you may have seen before in science and things like that. Chelsea was just telling me how she was learning about correlation and causation. Do you want to tell me about that, or? Oh, investigating. So what did you guys sort of...
Yes, with Caitlin.
Yes, with Caitlin as well. What did you guys talk about?
Causation... Wait, which way is it? Correlation does not mean causation.
So there's a statement that often is that correlation doesn't mean causation.
It says it there on the page.
Is that right? Ah, there, okay. I'm plan two ahead. Let's unpack what that actually means. Correlation is basically saying there's some relationship between two things. It's as simple as that, right? A very classic one that we'll look at in a moment is there is a supposed correlation between your height, so how tall you are, and your arm span, like how far apart your arms are. Now, just whack them in the face, yeah. Be careful when you do these ones, okay. Now here's the question though. Is there a causation between the two variables? Is there actually a reason that your height and your arm span are related? That's sort of the question here. Chelsea, you gave an example with ice creams. What was your example that you were talking about?
In summer, ice cream sales go up, but so does shark attacks. But shark attacks don't cause the ice cream.
Yeah, so there's an example. Let's suppose that we collect some information, increase ice creams, and increase shark attacks. So the question is, are these two related? Now what's going on is, now my first thought is, how do we know they're not related? And actually what we'll look at is that it's very hard to prove causation. In fact, it's also hard to disprove causation. Who knows if there's a relationship between two things? My theory was that sharks like ice creams, so they're attacking people that eat ice creams. Now, what's probably happening is that there's an underlying factor, is generally what happens. And the underlying factor is probably summer, exactly right. So in summer, more people buy ice creams, but in summer, more people go to the beach, hence resulting in more shark attacks. That's probably the idea behind it. But again, we don't really know. It's very difficult to prove or disprove causation. What we are going to look at is correlation though. It is actually a lot easier to identify, first of all, if there's a correlation, and then we're going to describe the correlation. That's kind of what this topic is looking at, right? Let me show you some interesting correlations. What do we have here? Global average temperature versus number of pirates. So as the temperature increases, right, so temperature is increasing. Why is it increasing? Well, what's happening on the x-axis here?
Number of pirates.
Yes, and they're actually going down. So actually, it's the number of pirates going down, which results in what we know as global warming. So that's my first proposed correlation to you. Yeah, the scale is very interesting. I find it also interesting that the scale, like these values are going down. It's all very strange what's going on here. But this is one way we can show that correlation doesn't mean causation. Just because there's a relationship between these things doesn't necessarily mean that there's a reason behind those things, right? That's just an example of that. Here's another one for you. What's going on here? So what two things are we looking at?
Arcade revenue and computer science doctorates.
So what's the supposed theory, Theo, do you think?
That arcade revenue is generating computer science doctorates.
So maybe
Theory.
the more people play, so it's talking about arcade revenue, and it's talking about computer science doctorates, which is just like a degree, it's like a PhD or something like that, like a high level university degree. So this is a bit different in the sense that you've also got this time factor, right? So it's kind of saying that these pieces of data are actually closely matched. As this goes up, then the other one goes up. But as one goes down, then the other goes down. So the supposed correlation might be that the amount of money made by arcades has something to do with pumping out computer science doctorates. Again, it seems like something that's a bit out there, but that's what we're going to look at. How do we know if there's actually a relationship between these two? I think I've got one more for you. What have we got here? So So we've got chocolate consumption. What's everyone's favorite chocolate? Mine is Turkish Delight. Hopefully no picnic fans here because I'm allergic to nuts. So. No, not allowed. What's on the vertical axis here though? What's there on the vertical axis, Caitlin?
I don't know.
What's a Nobel laureate?
Oh, I don't no idea.
Can someone look it up for me?
That one gets burned out.
Yeah, classic. You guys want to go on phones when you're not supposed to, but when you actually need to help the teacher out, no one wants to go on their phone. Classic.
I'll look it up, right?
We'll all look it up together. Nobel laureate.
A Nobel, not a
The Nobel
Nobel.
Prize? Oh, someone who wins a Nobel Prize.
Okay, so what are the Nobel Prize categories? There's like science. I think peace is one.
Astronomy. Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, these are just like high accolades that people win for certain things, right?
Like make a peace deal between.
Yeah, so I think like Nelson Mandela probably won a Nobel Prize. I don't know, don't hold me down. I'm pretty sure Aung San Suu Kyi, if anyone knows her, won a prize.
Trump got one. So
Did Trump actually get one?
yeah.
For what?
He made a peace deal between two warring Middle Eastern countries.
Ah, I'm pretty sure Obama's got one.
I have one.
Albert Einstein, Caitlin, yeah. Anyway, so here's the idea, right? Something that's quite strange. We're supposing that. Now, how does this graph work? Basically, okay, these are on the axes. These are going up in the right direction, going up in the vertical direction. Yeah, so China's got none, unfortunately. Who's got the biggest? Switzerland. And why is that? Well, it's because they eat more chocolate. The more chocolate you eat, the more Nobel prizes you get, is the idea. Ah, yes. So, Felicity's idea. The happier you are, the more likely you are going to make peace with people. What's that?
The less likely you are to walk,
Yeah.
the more likely you are to sit down.
Okay. Oh, okay. So Sean's theory is that the more chocolate you eat, the less mobile you are. So you're more likely to just get stuff done. Is that what the idea is? Yeah. Okay. Get peace done by eating chocolate. That's the idea that we have here, right? Again, a ludicrous idea, but sorry. Again, a very logical idea. But what I have to say though is we need to be a bit more mathematical about it. How can we be a bit more mathematical? If you look closely, there's a piece of information here that I haven't really talked about. And it's that they've given us a number, okay? So the question is, what does this number represent? We're going to look about it. This number here is called a correlation coefficient. Some of you may have seen this kind of thing before. We're going to look at calculating that a little bit later on, not just yet.